Welcome to This Explainer. Today we are diving headfirst into the chaotic, intense, and honestly incredibly poetic world of Argentine football. We're going to explore a nation whose football culture is undeniably elite, yet perpetually engulfed in total chaos. It's this wild story of dizzying highs, crushing lows, and a modern redemption arc that seriously feels like it was written by a Hollywood screenwriter.
Just to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this passion, consider this number for a second. 1.5 billion. That is the estimated number of people around the globe who literally held their breath and watched Lionel Messi step up to take his penalty in the 2022 World Cup final against France. I mean, it was one of those rare moments where time just practically stood still for a massive portion of the human race.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because down in Argentina, football, it is way more than just a game. It is a profound, deeply rooted national identity. As this quote perfectly captures, their sporting DNA is completely built on daring to overcome massive barriers and reaching for the unknown. But to really grasp how this passion reached a total boiling point in 2022, we have to look back at how this beautiful obsession actually started in the first place.
Section 1. A beautiful obsession.
So where did this obsession actually come from? Believe it or not, Argentine football didn't start with locals kicking a ball in the streets of Buenos Aires. It was actually introduced by British railway workers and merchants way back in the 1860s. By 1867, the very first recorded match took place at a cricket club, of all places. But the real game changer came in 1893, when a Scottish schoolteacher named Alexander Watson Hutton, who is now considered the father of Argentine football, formally organized the Argentine Football Association. That made it one of the oldest leagues in the entire world.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the stark contrast in how the game evolved. The sport itself was British, sure, but the identity became uniquely, fiercely Argentine. See, as waves of Italian and Spanish immigrants poured into the country, they totally rejected that rigid, physical, power-based British style of play. Instead, they developed what became known as La Nuestra, which literally translates to ours. It was a highly romanticized style built entirely on creativity, artistry, tight ball control, and just sheer improvisation.
Section 2. The Era of Football Gods.
That incredibly unique cultural style eventually catapulted Argentina to global dominance. After decades of developing their approach and basically dominating early South American tournaments, Argentina finally reached the absolute pinnacle of world football. They secured their very first World Cup victory in 1978, right on home soil. Now, it's important to note, this was a highly controversial tournament because it took place under a military dictatorship. But purely from a sporting perspective, it proved they definitively belonged at the top. And then, just 8 years later, in 1986 in Mexico, they did it all over again. And that '86 victory, well, that was largely thanks to one man.
The numbers completely prove what historians have been saying for decades. Diego Maradona essentially carried the Argentine team single-handedly to that 1986 title, cementing his status as an absolute football god. Just look at these figures. He scored or assisted 10 of Argentina's 14 total goals. He was fouled a staggering 53 times, and he completed 90 dribbles. To put that into perspective, that's 3 times more than any other player in the entire tournament. Literally, no one else even came close.
And all of that individual brilliance, it totally peaked in the 1986 quarterfinal against England, fueled heavily by the geopolitical tensions of the Falklands conflict just a few years prior. Maradona scored 2 of the most famous goals in football history within mere minutes of each other. First, you had the highly controversial Hand of God, where he literally punched the ball into the net. And then right after that, he delivered the goal of the century, a breathtaking 60-meter solo run right past half the English team. The guy was untouchable.
Section 3. The 28-year curse.
With 2 World Cups in the span of 8 years and a player like Maradona on their side, Argentina felt invincible. But then came the absolute darkest chapter in their modern history. 28. Let that just hang there for a second. That is how many agonizing years Argentina would go without winning a major senior international trophy. From a Copa America win in 1993, they wouldn't win again all the way until 2021.
During this brutal 28-year stretch, they produced some of the greatest youth talent the world had ever seen. Yet at the senior level, they suffered a historic string of heartbreak. I mean, look at this list of lost finals. 1995 to Denmark, 2004 to Brazil, 2005 to Brazil again, 2007, to Brazil yet again. Then there was the devastating 2014 World Cup final loss to Germany, followed immediately by back-to-back Copa America final losses to Chile on penalties in 2015 and 2016. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't just a drought. It honestly felt like a cosmic curse.
So the crucial point here is the absolute despair this caused. Following that 2016 loss to Chile, Lionel Messi, a guy widely considered the greatest player of his generation, was just completely crushed. He had lost 4 major finals. The weight of an entire nation was basically suffocating him, which led to this heartbreaking quote where he briefly announced his retirement from international football. He genuinely thought he was the problem.
Section 4. Anulo Maffa, Breaking the Curse.
But thankfully, Messi returned. And that brings us right to the turning point, the era of redemption. To understand how they finally broke this cycle, you have to understand this cultural phenomenon, Anulo Maffa. It's a phrase that became a desperate national rallying cry. Fans completely refused to let anyone predict a win or call them the favorites. If someone even dared to say Argentina would win, fans would instantly shout Anulo Maffa to cancel the jinx out. They were just that desperate to change their destiny.
Enter a young, relatively inexperienced head coach named Lionel Scaloni. He came in with a brilliant 3-step master plan. First, rebuild the squad's mental fortitude by surrounding Messi with players who grew up idolizing him, effectively removing the pressure that it was all resting on his shoulders alone. Second, play incredibly pragmatic defense-first football to secure the 2021 Copa America. And finally, with the curse broken and their confidence restored, fully unleash their natural attacking flair for the 2022 World Cup.
And this brilliantly illustrates one of the biggest tactical shifts under Scaloni. He directly addressed their biggest weakness. During the cursed 28-year era, penalties were basically Argentina's kryptonite. They lost 6 out of 9 shootouts. But Scaloni brought in goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez. Under Martinez, they've been in 4 penalty shootouts and they've won all 4. He took their greatest historical weakness and flipped it into an unbeatable, wildly intimidating weapon.
And the payoff for all this planning? Absolute euphoria. First, they broke the curse by defeating their arch-rivals Brazil right inside the legendary Maracanã Stadium to win the 2021 Copa America. Then, they followed it up by winning the chaotic, breathless 2022 World Cup final against France. Messi finally got his trophy, and that 28-year ghost was officially exorcised once and for all.
Section 5. A Poetic Football Destiny.
Now, you might be thinking, well, that's the perfect ending right there. But buckle up, because the story of Argentine football is setting up a narrative that is almost too unbelievable to be true. Let's move to this and see how it builds. Back in 2007, a 20-year-old Lionel Messi did a charity photo shoot for UNICEF. Through a random lottery, he was paired to take photos bathing his 6-month-old baby. Fast forward to 2024, and that exact baby is Lamine Yamal, the teenage prodigy who just led Spain to the European Championship. The greatest player of this era literally blessed the potential greatest player of the next era when he was just a baby. You can't make this up.
But wait, it gets crazier. Right before winning the 2021 Copa America, the Argentine team played a card game in the locker room where you had to guess the card drawn. Everyone failed until it was Messi's turn. On his 10th try, he guessed the Cinco de Copas, the 5 of Cups. And he was right. The whole team just went absolutely wild. Since then, fans have realized that a 2026 World Cup win would represent Messi's 5th international trophy with the senior team, the 5 of Cups. So let's weave this whole mini-narrative together. You've got Messi, right? A guy who moved to Spain at 13, learned his football there, and was heavily criticized early in his career for rejecting the Spanish national team to play for a struggling Argentina. On the other side, you have Lamine Yamal, Spain's brand new savior, symbolically anointed by Messi himself in a bathtub 17 years ago. And with Spain winning the Euros and Argentina winning the Copa America, these two titans are currently on a direct collision course. Which leads us to this final, totally goosebump-inducing question. Is a 2026 World Cup clash of destiny already written in the stars? Could Messi's final act be a showdown for the 5 of Cups against the very nation that built him and against the very prodigy he once held in his arms? In Argentinian football, where the line between total chaos and beautiful poetry is basically non-existent, you just have to wonder. So what do you think? Thanks so much for watching this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.